I often get emails from, every day I get emails from somebody and somewhere, but I often get emails from people in around the world. And I got an email from a young woman in India. Yo, hang on. And she asked me a really interesting question about what I thought. And I said, well, hang on, what do you think? And then I said, wait, I don't want to ask you what you think. I'm actually really curious about having my students answer that question. Okay, so would you be willing to come into the classroom? So she said, yep, I can do that. And I said, cool. And then this morning, just by chance, there's a group of high school students from Sweden who were doing some kind of school project, and they found me on old professors' websites or whatever, right? And so they asked me some cool questions, and I said, hey, by the way, we have class today, and it'd be really cool to have a couple more students from a different country come in and join the conversation along with the students here, and they agreed to do that. And so I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a minute. Actually, why don't we start? Why don't we start online? And then, do you want to go to Zoom? Yeah, okay. So you can unmute your mics, everybody, online. Felicia and Wilhelmina and hang on. You tell me how to pronounce it. I got it. Gauri, right? How did I do?
Yeah, it's basically G with a G, so it would be Gauri.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to have you say what the question is, but why don't you say something about yourself really fast?
Yeah, sure. I'm 16 years old, and I'm joining in from Hyderabad, India, which is in the southern part of India. And I've currently just begun the 12th grade.
And you are really fascinated by things like sociology, even though you are, study math and science and that sort of thing, if I remember.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I actually recently made a shift, and I'm currently trying to get into law school here in India.
Cool. Okay. All right. So, Felicia, how about you?
Yeah, I'm 18 years old, and I live in a town like an hour outside of Stockholm. And I go to a high school, and I graduate this summer in June.
And you're going to take time off?
Yeah.
To go explore yourself?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. And Wilhelmina?
Yes, so I'm Felicia's friend, also from Sweden, and we live in the same town and go to the same class, and also graduating in June. And we both study social science at our high school, and also planning on taking some time off after high school.
Okay, awesome. Are you also taking a year off?
Yeah, or more. I don't know. But at least a year.
Okay, awesome. All right, listen, thank you all. Thanks for being here. It's awesome to have you. And I want to introduce our 4 volunteers from class. So, yeah.
I'm Mia. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a junior, and also majoring in supply chain and psychology business.
And you are from?
I'm from Taiwan.
From Taiwan?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And we met actually on the golf course.
Yeah, we met at a golf course. He plays golf too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, very cool. All right.
My name's Sam. I'm from Delaware County, Pennsylvania. I'm a sophomore accounting major. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Firas. I'm a sophomore film major, and I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Dude, and by the way, Faraz, one thing he wrote in his volunteer application said, he said, I have green hair, And how can you not be interested in listening to what somebody with green hair has to say? A Saudi with green hair. All right.
Hi, my name is Dennis Ko, and I'm from Seoul, South Korea. I'm a sophomore studying mechanical engineering.
Okay, awesome. Why don't we do, so on the Zoom call, hang on 1 second, we're going to take the attendance quiz, and then we'll be right back with you. Gauri, you are on first. So say what the question is that you asked me, if you would, and then we will go from there.
Yes, sure. My question was, what are the ethics of criticizing one's own country on an international stage?
So it's kind of the ethics of criticizing one's own country on an international stage. Okay? And what led you to that question, by the way? What is it about that particular question?
Yeah, one night I was just going through your videos, and the one that popped up was the one where you had 5 Indians from your class, ethnically Indian, that lived in different parts of the world, and you were just hearing them out, having a discussion. And obviously, as someone watching the video, I was responding to those questions you were posing them. And I realized that a lot of my questions were quite critical of my country. Obviously, criticizing your own country is beneficial, it's very important. But what are the ethics of doing it internationally? Doesn't the audience change the message? That's what led me to the question.
Mm-hmm. It's a very cool question. It's one that we're always wrestling with here in front, because people, are going to. They don't know what questions I'm going to ask them, and so it's a big dilemma. It's a big question. Okay, so we're calling this class "Criticizing Ourselves," and you can just put one of the cameras up on that stream at this point. Hey, so listen. When we're thinking about ethics, we're thinking, I'm going to start here, you all, on the front table, and then we're going to go on to the screen, okay? When you think about ethics, we're thinking about right and wrong, okay? And my first question is, what is okay for citizens to talk about among themselves, but it's less okay on an international stage? What's something that comes to mind? Or, you got that? Why don't you? I got the question, but I can't. You don't have a question? Okay. I'm gonna come back. I'm actually gonna start in a different way. What do you think about her question? What are the ethics of criticizing your own country on an international stage? Like, what's the first things that come to mind for you?
There's 2 things. So one for each side of that coin that I think about first is, one, my obligation to be consistent in my moral values. So for example, if I see one thing happening in another country that I don't like, but my country is doing that same thing, I can't be hypocritical about it. But on another side, I also have an obligation to represent my country, and I be somewhat nationalist in a way that I think my country is the greatest. I mean, I live here. I love America. I'll live here. I was born here. I'll die here. So I have the obligation to represent my country well at the same time.
All right. Somebody else. Faraz, how about you?
Can you repeat the question?
So what's the first thing when we ask that question? What are the ethics of criticizing your own country on an international stage?
I feel
what comes to mind for you?
First thing that comes to mind is at what point is it criticizing and just talking about your country? Because there's a difference between just saying, this, and there's a difference between insulting your country. I feel like insulting your country is a bit too far, a bit too much. But I feel like it's okay to talk, between ourselves.
So it's okay to talk between yourselves, but once you get to the international stage and you it starts turning into insulting your
I
country?
feel like I'm not saying that it turns into insult. I'm saying there's like, what do you mean by criticizing? Do you mean like talking, insulting?
Yes,
What's
talking about all the negative things.
talking
Was
about?
that what you would say, Sam? Talking about the negative things about your country?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with that because, I mean, opposition, like a country that might be in opposition to your country could take that and use that to destabilize, part of your nation.
Okay. So talking about the negative things.
Talking about the negatives, me personally, I feel like you shouldn't do that as much, especially internationally, where there's a lot of propaganda and where a lot of people can take that like information and spread like false information about countries. Be like, oh, look at this, look how this, that, and stretch it to the point where it's not true.
So you need to be careful because people
Yes.
can take your words out of context in some way.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Mia, how about you? What comes to mind for you?
For me, just like I think for our own citizens to criticize our nation is like we want to make progress to improve or something, but in a good way. But for other country, we may be like we will misunderstanding their intention, like reading out of the context, as you said.
So for you, if you're criticizing your country internationally, it has to be only to improve your country or
I mean, when we talk about like inside our country.
inside your
Yeah.
country, right? So then it's okay
I
if
think-
you're trying to improve.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. By the way, and what about on the international stage? Like, what about right now? So, people in Taiwan will watch this video, okay? I don't know how many people, but people in Taiwan will watch it, okay? And what are you thinking? What are you thinking about what you can and can't say?
We are a democracy country, so I'm not sure like what can we say. Like we are free. We have free speech, so actually we can say anything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you feel like you can say anything
Yeah.
pretty much. Uh-huh.
But just like for the face, you won't talk about like my country suck. We under another country like people like that directly. Like you're more indirect way to say it.
So what Sam said was you got to be careful about what you say because of how other people might interpret it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Dennis, how about you? Where does your mind go when you think about this?
First thing that came into my mind was like culture. So like, does it have to be like?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so when like this one country criticize other country, when it comes to like culture, I've seen like a lot of people on Instagram, like or social media, that criticize other countries like their own culture and stuff. So I think that's wrong. But like when it comes to like politics and like other stuff that's like a global issue or something like that, I think it's okay for them to like share their opinions and like criticize a little bit of what other countries are doing.
When does it become not okay? It's like good politics. Like, let's take Korea. So when is it not okay for, Mia or Sam or Philomena or Felicia? When is it not okay for someone to criticize Korea? At what point do they cross a line?
Politically or like?
Just at what point would you say, oh man, that's not cool? Like, the point at which you say, hey, that's my country.
Maybe I've never thought about this question, but maybe when like the person who's criticizing South Korea is not from Korea and like criticizing like current government's policies or like what they're doing, maybe that's not wrong. I mean, not right.
And maybe if you think that they don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Felicia or Vilhelmina, whoever wants to go first. But hang on, I want to come back. What if what they're saying about Korea is accurate? What if, what if they're saying the same thing that many Koreans are saying?
I mean, then if many other Koreans agree to that person, whoever is like saying their opinion out, then I would say that's a valid.
So it has to be a certain number of other Koreans, though.
I mean, I would not say a certain number, but like, if like majority of the citizens, like people there agree, I feel like that's like that's not like a criticism.
Ah, okay, okay. Hey, Sam, I'm going to go to Sweden in a second, but you were going to say something.
Yeah, about your last question,
Yeah.
When it's not okay for someone to criticize my country, in my opinion, is when it crosses the line between, and I think you were kind of like almost there, but like when it crosses the line between politicians or politics and then the people. Like if someone wants to say something about American politics, that's fine by me, go ahead and say it. But if someone wants to say like, oh, Americans are fat and uneducated, like, you know, like I live here and everyone's great. Like no one, you know, people are kind of fat sometimes.
No, in case you are watching from Taiwan, nobody's fat and uneducated. All right.
But yeah, I mean, like, just
but that's a stereotype.
it crosses the line. Stereotypes about
That's
the people
stereotype.
and the culture, as he said, like that kind of stuff is not. It's not as okay. And if it's accurate, you know, maybe I can give a little bit of a leash on it. But
Okay.
actually, inaccurate stereotypes for sure.
Okay. All right. Hey, Sweden, Philomena or Felicia, whoever wants to go first. How about what first comes to mind for you when you hear that question? Like, what are the ethics about criticizing your own country?
I think no, I feel free to say anything about Sweden because Sweden is really big on the freedom of speech and also the freedom of the press. It's like in the Swedish constitution. So yeah, it's really important here, and also all the like the leaders here, like the prime minister and all the political parties, they always talk negative about each other and criticize each other. So it's really like a common thing. And when they do it, it makes it like normalized, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Philomena, how about you?
Yeah, I think, or like in Sweden in general, we're pretty good to criticize our country, or like not necessarily criticize, but more complain. And I think that has a lot to do with we have not experienced like wars or like real bad things in our country. So we have a lot of things to be grateful for. So we maybe don't have things to compare, or like horrible things to compare stuff with. So we kind of complain about things that might not be like we have to complain about. So I think, yeah, but I think it's really common in Sweden to be like a bit complaining about our country, and I think that's very normalized. You wouldn't get looked at differently if you're complaining about Sweden.
So that's okay. So there's a difference between complaint and criticize. Okay, and So, and what you're saying is, listen, we have a pretty cool country, and things are going really, really well here, and so yeah, be very careful about being on a public stage and criticizing this country. That's actually a really cool country, because you're going to give people the impression, maybe a wrong impression, about what Sweden is like. Does that kind of make sense of what you were saying?
Like, no, I don't think we are. I think we're really good at criticizing our country in front of like other nationalities, or like we can be very self-aware, but
Yeah.
I believe that we might exaggerate a bit, or like we can even complain too much or be too
Yeah.
too critic of our country when that might not be necessary always.
No, I hear that. That's a really interesting point. Like sometimes the complaint isn't necessary. I have that sometimes here in the US when people are complaining about things, and I'm often asking, wait, what are you complaining about? Like, what are you criticizing? Are you kidding me? This is really amazing, So, and then it becomes, okay, you have a right to criticize, but sometimes I feel something about that because it seems really extreme. Yeah. So you guys, the two of you would agree with that? That, yeah, sometimes maybe, do you agree with that? Sometimes it feels extreme.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. Or like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my opinion on Swedes in general.
Yeah, Swedes can be very like Swedes are like Koreans, by the way. You guys, Koreans are very demanding, man. Like Koreans are and Saudis in your own way, like Arabs, like put very high demands on each other. So it's like it can be really difficult sometimes to meet the standards of other people around you. Hey, Gauri, so how about you? What are you hearing so far? Like what has someone said that you're thinking about now for your answer?
I was thinking about, you asked everyone what's the line that we shouldn't cross when you criticize someone else's country or someone criticizes your country. I think for me that would be when the criticism is generalized or there's no nuance to it. If, for example, if I say, like he mentioned, Americans are fat and uneducated, there's no nuance, there's no specificity to it. And something else I was thinking about is how how you criticize your country, the weight your criticism holds for your own country changes with what country you're from. Say,
Okay.
I'm from India, right? And I think with my view of social media in the world right now, there's a very negative pre-existing image of the country in a lot of people's minds. So when I criticize my country, it would probably be perceived more differently than it would if someone from, say, Sweden would. As in the country where you're from and the society which you put criticism into, it changes with context, it changes with what the pre-existing views of that country are.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah. Does anyone have a response to any of that? Do you have a response? Or Felicia or Wilhelmina, do you have a response? Yeah. Yeah. The response to you, Gauri, is become a facilitator. Hey, I want to come back to you, actually. I want to go back to India for a second. So what's your biggest criticism of India that you might think in your head, but you would not want to say here? And I'm going to ask you to what it is because I'm asking you to say it, right? So like.
Yeah, sure. My biggest qualm right now would be on the national stage. I feel like voters are forced to choose between the lesser of evils.
Yeah.
As in, there is no accurate representation that someone from my generation would like to be represented by some party they would vote for. It feels like we are having to choose between the lesser of evils. I don't see an accurate representation of me in the government.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Well, that's not even a criticism. That would be standard thinking of young people everywhere in the world. Wait, let me ask you. I'm going to ask you this, and then I want to go to Felicia and Wilhelmina. What's one thing that you would hear a foreigner say, that you would say, or other people, right, but foreigners, someone outside of Korea, you would say, I don't like that. I don't like that you said that. What's one thing that I can't say about Korea or about India? I'm going to ask you all a similar question, okay?
It would probably be if you comment on something that is a very common misconception about a cultural thing, say a religion that I'm close to or any culture that I'm close to. If there's a very common misconception or stereotype and a foreigner says that, that would probably make me angry or mad.
Okay, even if it's partly true.
Yeah, I think a lot of stereotypes are based in the truth, actually.
Stereotypes begin with the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're always true at some level.
Yeah.
Almost always true. Hey, Wilhelmina and Felicia, what's something that somebody you might hear about Sweden that you just really don't like? Yeah. That you would say, no, that's not fair. I don't like that. Something you've heard. Yeah.
I think a lot of people think we have extremely high taxes, or we do have really high taxes in comparison to other countries. And I think that can be for in comparison to the USA, we have really high taxes. And I think a lot of people can have a negative tone when they say that. That's the only thing I can think about that.
Okay.
If they don't international.
Yeah. Okay. If people don't see the positive side of that, they just criticize high taxes.
Yeah, I think because in Sweden, it's not really. We have a more right-wing government now that are pro lower taxes, but the taxes are still very high compared to the USA. And so I think there's just this this base in Sweden that we have really high taxes.
All right, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say something. All you have to do when you hear anybody outside of Sweden say something about your taxes, all you have to do is tell them how much you're going to pay in tuition when you go to college. How much will you pay?
0.
Okay, there you go, right? That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
Hey, and then I'm going to come back to the table, but Felicia, how about you? What's something that somebody might say that you would feel just not like about your country?
The only thing I thought of was the thing Wilhelmina said. Because no, I haven't really heard anything bad about Sweden. When we went to Italy, someone said that if you want to rent an apartment, it's enough to say you're Swedish because they like Swedish people, so it's really easy to get an apartment there. And yeah, I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of is the taxes.
Yeah, which is big though, because many people around the world, that's a big criticism of your country, and it shows that they don't really understand. Hey, Faraz, how about you? What's something that? Hey, thanks for that, by the way. That's cool. What's somebody say about Saudi Arabia that you'd be like?
When someone tries to talk about experience when they haven't lived through it, a lot of people saying Saudi Arabia represses the women, restrict women, especially with the hijab and the niqab. And it's you haven't lived through that. You don't know that experience. How can you talk? And a lot of women that I know personally, they're happy wearing the hijab. They're happy. They feel more protected. They feel the gaze away from them. So I feel talking through, though you don't know nothing, is negative.
Oh, so one thing is that there is. So what are you saying? I'm going to summarize for the stream. So one thing is when people talk about the repression of individuals, and women in particular wearing the hijab or the niqab, and women don't necessarily, not all women feel that. In fact,
I remember you talked about a story of you meeting a girl wearing a niqab, and like she like, was so happy about it and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I know. You know, it's funny. I was walking across the hub lawn, and you know, I didn't realize that I was walking across this array of people who there was a lot of skin. Okay, let me just say, there was more skin on the hub lawn that I would see in Saudi Arabia if I lived there for a year. Okay, and so I was thinking to myself, how is that? Are people choosing this, or are they not choosing this? Like, is that really a choice? And so people ask the same thing, and they would ask Saudi women, is that a choice that you wear a hijab or a niqab, or is it something that you're being forced to do? Well, you could ask the same question walking across the hub lawn.
True, 100% true.
Do you ever ask that? Do you ask that?
To women.
No, like to yourself. And yeah, do you ever ask that to women?
Yes,
Here.
occasionally I do think to myself, like, is it a choice? Is it not a choice? It is somewhat a choice. They do it because of God, but at the same time, they chose to do it for God. So I would say it is somewhat of a choice. Same thing with the whole bikini. They chose to wear a bikini.
Yeah.
And everyone has the right to make their own choices.
Yeah. Dennis, how about you? What's something that somebody would say about Korea that you would say, that's not cool, man?
I mean, I wouldn't be mad if someone like asks me this, but like I think one thing that people doesn't like know correctly is that Korea has like one of the most highest suicide rate, right? Like it's known for like the students high suicide rate.
It's one of the higher rates in the world.
Yeah. So many people would think that all the students in Korea are depressed and like stuff like that, but I wouldn't say so because there are stress like that's like giving students pressure, like going to college and stuff like that. But I would say Korean students like enjoy their lives, not like they're like not 100% into like studying and stuff like that.
So do you ever find yourself defending Korea when you're here in the United States? Like needing to defend Korea?
I mean, I've never heard anything negative about Korea from my like friends or people around me. So I never tried to defend them, but like, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this question. How about when you're with Koreans here and they criticize Korea and other people hear them? Do you find yourself saying like, whoa, hang on, maybe we should not, this goes to Gauri's question, right? Do you feel maybe we shouldn't talk about this?
Oh, you mean like some things that like other like foreign people shouldn't know?
Yeah, like they don't know about, and so Koreans are kind of like, you're with your friends and people are talking the negative stuff. And how often do you find yourself saying, maybe we should?
Oh yeah, sometimes because like I wouldn't want to show like some negative parts about my own country to like other people's,
So you're careful about showing the negative parts. But what happens when you show the negative parts? Like, what's the problem with that? This is the question. What happens? What's the problem with doing that?
Then like the people who's like hearing the stuff would have like the negative stereotype to Korea. And like I would have to explain that again to like whoever's listening.
Then you have to just go.
To correct them or like.
By the way, the suicide rate piece, if I could say something. So one of the things is that I've talked about a fair amount. If one country has let's say a suicide rate of 22.7 per 100,000 people, okay? And the next country has a suicide rate of 22.6 per 100,000 people. But the one with 0.7, it's the highest in the world, okay? So what does that say about that country? It's like, wait, what about the one that's 22.6 people per 100,000 people? But now you've already said the highest in the world, so you've created a wrong way or just a misguided or misunderstood way of seeing things. Yeah. Hey, Sam, how about you? Like, what's like What are the things? What are the things that you hear about the United States, and that from other people that kind of gets you annoyed?
So I mean, I kind of already touched on like generalizations or stereotypes of our people as a whole, because everyone's unique. There's 400 million of us. You can't really generalize all of us. But I think aside from that, to not be repetitive, I think comments on our political system from the outside looking in are kind of they're just uninformed, in my opinion. Like our system's not perfect. I won't be the one to say that, but people like to act as if our system right now is like, we're losing our democracy or whatever, and I just don't see that. And I think that comes from the inside too, from like, I think it depends who's in power, but extremists from either side would be like, well, our rights are being taken away depending on who's in power, right? I mean, right now it's.
So can you give me an example of uninformed? Do you have something that comes to mind that really quickly?
I don't know, nothing that comes to mind, but just like scrolling through social media and like everything is so like, I don't want to say anti-American, but just like down on America, like negative emotions, I guess. When like every system's going to go through its rough times where, like we can't really make any progress. We can't, we can't pass certain things that I think would be helpful for everyone because we're in like gridlock. But, at the end of the day, our system is designed, and it's worked well before, and I think it'll work well again. And it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's the example for every other democracy in the world. Like everyone tries to be us.
Yeah,
and then they go and criticize us.
Except Sweden. And if Americans knew what Sweden was like, they'd want to be like Sweden. But like whatever. I don't know what some of you all are paying for your Penn State education, but my guess is you're probably paying a lot of money. Hey, okay, but I hear you. That's good. But how about this? How often do you stop and ask yourself, wait, hang on a second. If I'm feeling this way about all this snarkiness, but then how informed am I about other systems,
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would say that they're pretty informed, and I'll say the same thing. Like, I think I'm pretty informed about other systems, and there's definitely aspects of other political systems that I would, like to see implemented in America that I think could work better. But at the end of the day, that's just not what we have. And it's kind of like, I think you touched on it with the girls from Sweden, like, there's a difference between criticizing and complaining. Like, I can criticize that we don't have certain parts of that, but like, I think excessive complaining doesn't help anyone.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's cool. I actually, what he's saying as an American is probably more among my students, by the way, if you happen to be whoever watches this, among my students, his sentiment is probably the most common thing that I would hear among Americans. Which I think it's a very fair assessment. Hey, Mia, I have a question. So you're from Taiwan, and you got all this stuff going on with China in Taiwan. Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue, right? Because you are, because the Chinese government is saying like, hey, we want to take over. In the end, we want Taiwan. We want it back. This is our land. Okay. When you talk about Taiwan, how often are you thinking about Chinese, if you talk about it here, right, or wherever, how often are you thinking about what Chinese people are thinking about what you say? Like, you have Chinese friends. So like, how often?
Get a question. What are you?
How often are you thinking about, when you think about talking about your country, how often are you putting I don't know how to say this in a way that makes sense, but when you're with people from China, okay, how do you change what you're thinking, what you're saying about your country, just based on their ideas? How about that? Does that make sense?
You think will I change like
Okay.
if I'm around it, that's Chinese?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask a different way. What are the unique difficulties of being Taiwanese and talking about your country? Because it's very complicated.
Yeah. The difficulties. Maybe when we compete in like world kind of like Olympics, and there's like not allow have our like flags inside of the stadium.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe in that kind of
Like
situation.
things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are lots of political things that are very, the English word is delicate.
Yeah.
Do you know that word?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, very delicate. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, hang on. Which Sam doesn't have any sense as an American. He doesn't have a sense of this because we don't have that level. But for you, there are things that are very delicate and you are careful about. Yeah.
Like when we are in like the country like US or Japan or Korea, like we don't need to really watch what we are speaking, but maybe in other country like more society, then we need to like be careful.
So you're more careful, and are conversations really open in Taiwan, or how open are they? You can say anything you want.
Yeah, we can say everything we want. We also can attack our like government, so staff or something. So that's like free speech.
How about making pro-Chinese statements? Is that okay?
You can say that.
Yeah,
like
that's not a
someone,
problem.
yeah, that's not a problem. Like you can say that. Like maybe the reporter will go to like interview you and put it on the news.
And
So
that's
that's not an issue.
Uh-huh. How about in Saudi? How often do you think people censor themselves?
I don't really find myself censoring myself that much in Saudi Arabia. I feel like as long as you don't say anything negative, you should be fine. I personally don't think that much. Oh, the negatives of Saudi. I really love my country.
So do you just take the negatives and kind of block them out?
I don't think there is a sense. I just can't think of a negative
You
in
don't
Saudi
think so?
Arabia.
You don't even think
Yeah,
of it.
that's my country.
Dude, yeah, but hang on. When you hear Sam saying the same thing or an American saying the same thing, oh, the U.S., we're the greatest country in the world. Is that like, yeah?
Like I feel like everyone at one point thinks their country is the best country.
What about countries where it's not the best country? When do people have an obligation to speak out about the things that their country is doing?
I feel like when the country contradicts their ethics, I think there's a lot of countries where they got problems and like they're doing wrong things. Like if we're talking about the Israel genocide, because I don't know, me personally, because I don't agree with the genocide. If I was from Israel, I wouldn't agree that much.
Oh, so if you were Israeli,
Yeah.
you wouldn't call it a genocide.
No, I'm saying I would disagree. I'm saying when your country's ethics disagrees with yours, I think that's when you should speak out.
Okay, wait. How about this? How about Saudi's actions in Yemen? How about that?
Say it again?
Are you aware of Saudi Arabia? So we can talk about genocide. We can talk about Israel, okay? And we can use the genocide word. What about Yemen?
Yeah. What about it?
Well, what about what's going on in Yemen? What about all the civilians who have died in Yemen? Do you feel an obligation to learn about? To what degree do you feel an obligation to learn about that?
I'm not sure. I don't know that much about it.
Okay. Do you realize what just happened, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So this is that's the thing, right? So I could go to Sam the same thing and be like, dude, yeah, it's a great country of our problems. Bro, there's some more than problems, man. Are you watching just right now how many civilians are dying in Iran? Like, are you following that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm well aware of it, and it weighs heavily on me because that's what I said earlier when the very first question is that you have to be consistent in your morals.
So when do you feel as an American do you have an obligation to say something? Like for example, right now we're at war. We're sending a lot of missiles over. Although right now we got this truce going on for the moment, right? But there are a lot of other things going on, and that's only one place. I can pick lots of places. At what point does it cross a line for you to say, whoa, hang on a second. Now I might have to criticize my country publicly?
I'm in a unique situation. Well, not very unique, but compared to Saudi Arabia, where we've been given much more loose, actually no censorship, ideally, but we have very good freedom of speech laws, and very good protection. So, at the very first moment where I disagree with whatever my country does, I should speak out on that, and that goes with everyone in this classroom. I mean, as soon as you disagree with what your country's doing, you should be speaking out because you have those freedoms.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Sweden and India in a second, but where should you speak out?
I'm not saying that everyone needs to get on like a global stage.
No, I got you.
Yeah, everything nowadays is global. I mean, if you post on social media, anyone can see it. But not even that. I mean, if you're having a conversation with your friends and you disagree, and you're talking, sometimes you talk about politics and you disagree with something, you shouldn't be scared of speaking out.
Let's just explore it for a couple. Let's explore Israel. Let's go back to Israel for a second, right? Because you're Jewish.
I'm Jewish. Yep.
And you, even though you're really liberal and you're not religiously very Jewish, but you're connected.
Yes, very connected. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a smart guy, and you're thinking about these geopolitical things or cultural things. So, you're going to naturally have a connection to that part of you, right? But look, man, the reason Israel exists is the problem in itself of 2,000 years of people finding reasons to hate Jews.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to set aside whatever we might call what's happening in Gaza and so on, right? We'll just set that aside for a second. But if I'm Jewish, I'm critiquing Israel. I'm going to do it publicly, but I'm going to be aware that I might step over a line and damn, man, I don't.
Yeah.
There's a protective quality. The reason Israel exists is because of the hate that could just boom.
You used a really good word for it earlier. You said delicate when you were talking about Taiwan, and I think it's the same situation. I think obviously Israel has the right to exist, and I know that's controversial these days, but I'm going to stand on that. But there's certain aspects of things where you have, as I'm not Israeli, but as a Jewish person, you're having conversations. I have a friend who serves in the IDF, just talking with him every summer or talking with my family. You have to, for me at least, I have my moral obligation to at least follow what I've been preaching in other parts of, for other countries. Okay. So
here's the thing then. If you were to say, so Faraz just freely used the word genocide, which many people do, right? Yeah. By the way, I want to point out, this is a college campus. This is a conversation on a college campus. So if you're watching the video and you have this idea that college students can't talk about anything anymore, here are these two, a Muslim student and a Jewish student in the same classroom, and we're having a conversation. And this is the majority of conversations that are happening on college campuses. It is not the extreme, nobody can talk anymore. Damn, that shit is getting so old, and stop with the rhetoric, right?
Absolutely.
But anyway, so for you, what if you, in your, it's delicate, right? So you might think the word, you're really smart. So you'd be able to make an argument that it's genocide.
Yes.
And you'd be able to make an argument that it's not genocide.
Yes.
Okay. So now, but here you are, the cameras are on, and how much are you thinking, okay, which way am I going to go? Criticizing, Gauri, this is the moment of your question, right? Where am I going to go here? Because there's a lot of things at stake about what you say.
Yeah, it's for one, it's most important to not give anyone, I don't want to say, the opportunity to be anti-Semitic, because there's a difference between criticizing a government and criticizing the Israel government, and then being anti-Semitic and saying something about Jewish people in general, not just the Israeli government. Speaking on the world power or whatever, right?
And so go ahead.
Yeah, you can't. When I'm talking about Israel to people who are not Jewish, who are not Israeli, my biggest thing is, and I guess it's kind of self-preservation, but I don't want to hear someone say something about Jewish people that is unwarranted. That's not about the Israeli government.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
I got you. even if they're making a very thoughtful argument, but you run the risk of something. Like for example, for Mia, if you say something positive about China, okay, you're in Taiwan, here you are, you're Taiwanese, you're on the camera, you say something positive about China, people in Taiwan who hear that might say, like, wait, why are you saying anything positive about China? Like, you can't say anything. Like, this is crazy. You need to not say anything about China unless it's negative or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my stepmom's watching, and we'll be at the dinner table talking about, whatever, just politics or just anything. That's what the dinner table's for, is talking about anything. And I don't want my family to get the impression that I'm anti-Israel, because I'm not. And in turn, I think a lot of Jewish people and even Israelis would get the sense that if you're anti-Israel, then I'm like I don't know what the word is, but I'm against myself.
I got you. But you've not been to Israel yet?
I've not been there, but I will be there.
I've spent plenty of time there. Dude, Israelis, Jews in the U.S. don't got to worry about criticizing Israel. All the criticism is inside of Israel, with Jews Israelis critiquing Israel, man. It is just like, oh shit. It's the idea, but
Yeah, I mean,
you get it.
Yeah, if I want to speak about how I think that illegal settlements in the West Bank are wrong, I don't want to say that's because Jewish people are violating the Geneva Conventions, right?
Okay.
It's that the government is doing something wrong, not the people.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. It's very thoughtful. Is he censoring himself? To what degree is he censoring himself?
I mean, I can see that he's being like a bit careful on what he's saying, because obviously he's being recorded, and other people might like criticize on him what he's like talking about against Israel, or like about Israel, or about other countries.
To what degree do you feel like he's censoring? Like, how much? When you think about everything he just said, how much do you think he's holding back versus what he's freely saying?
I mean, as everyone knows, it's kind of sensitive topic right now because of all the awards and stuff. I mean, I can't tell like how much he's like censoring himself, but like, it's pretty obvious that he's not saying like everything he wants to.
And how is that? Is that okay?
I mean, I think it's totally fine, because maybe he just doesn't want anyone else to like know his own opinion. It's a bit like too sensitive to like speak out loud and like the whole public.
So, like, for example, for you, how Koreans are, man, online. So if you say the wrong thing here, the Koreans are going to grab that.
They're gonna
Explain to people what's going to happen to you if you misspeak.
If I like say something that
like really anti-Korean.
Yeah, which is really sensitive in Korea. If I say anything against them or anything, or if I say anything that they don't think it's right, then they would just like attack me in like YouTube comments and everything. Yeah. The whole crowd just like, yeah.
It's all going to be one voice. It wouldn't be like Israeli. The Israelis would attack you from 1,000 different voices, but him is one voice, man, all saying the same thing. In Saudi, how is it in Saudi? Do you guys gang up on people online? Or do you not? Nobody says anything critical of it?
If you do see something, I do believe like the people like will view negatively. It's like, oh, why is he talking bad about his country? Why is he betraying his country? It's like what he said about like if he talks about Israel, people can think he's anti-Israel when he isn't. I feel like if I do say something wrong, some Saudi might be like, oh, hey, like why are you betraying yourself, betraying your country?
Yeah. So that's the worry all the time. It's like, hey, Gauri, if I want to go back to India, so your question, the ethics of criticizing your country on a global stage. So now you just listen to Sam have that conversation. What comes to mind for you?
I actually found what Sam and the guy from Korea said to be very relatable. When Sam said that when he was being careful about what he was talking about Israel, what I remembered, he said, what would his stepmom think or what would his parents think? That's a very relatable thing for me, because when I was watching your class and the way Indian students talk about India, I kept thinking of myself in that scenario and thinking, if I said something wrong, what would I go back home to? And also what he said about the risk of being quoted online, especially on social media. It's very, the practical situation of criticizing your own country is more about this fear of being quote unquote disloyal to your people.
Yeah,
That makes
disloyal.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also, along with this fear of being disloyal, you also feel this moral duty to speak the truth about something that
Yeah.
may be wrong, which sometimes might be criticism. It's this tension between being loyal and saying the truth.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's very cool. Hey, Felicia and Wilhelmina, I have a question for you. What is inside of Sweden? What are the biggest criticisms that people have? You mentioned like people just being that kind of snarky and all, but what are some problems in Sweden that people really are not talking about enough? How about that? That's the question.
I think like the biggest problem right now in Sweden is the gang violence, but I think people talk a lot about that. So because I think it really affects everyone that people are out shooting on the streets and they shoot like civil people, not only people from their gangs. So that has been a problem in Sweden for a long time, and yeah, but I don't know what a problem is that's not talked about enough. Maybe
Okay, wait.
Wilhelmina.
Okay, we're going to stay with this one, right? Philomena. So what she just said, so now think about the four of you, think about what she just said. Yeah, the problem of gangs and people shooting, other gang members shooting other people on the streets, and sometimes shooting innocent people. So, Wilhelmina, what do you think we're thinking is happening in Sweden?
Like what you in the US are thinking?
Yeah, given what she just said, put yourself in the shoes of someone who's never been to Sweden. What are we thinking about Sweden?
Maybe that we have a very violent country, maybe, or that it's not safe to walk on the street, or I don't know. But if you can't, like, or I don't know what to say really. But
No, okay. No, you just said it right there. So
yeah.
this is what Sam was saying too. Wait, if you say one thing, which is true, right? What Felicia said made a really good statement. It's like, yeah, one thing we're not talking about is the gang violence. But the moment you start talking about it, it becomes really big. Like that's the only thing happening in Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you, Wilhelmina, Sweden's pretty safe, right?
Yeah, I would say Sweden is really safe, or like pretty safe. We used to have like gang violence, but it definitely has gotten better over the years, but there are obvious problems. But like I think you could say that Sweden is one of the safest countries in the world, and not like exaggerate when saying that.
No, that's right. Okay, so this is part of the problem of talking about your country and a global stage, because it's always more complex than you imagine it to be, right?
Yeah.
What Felicia said is absolutely, I know exactly what you were saying. And I agree with you. It's just gang violence. You're not talking about it. But in order to talk about it, like the two of you say that, but you know that Sweden is really, really safe, So you can say that, but other people are going to interpret it in a different way, and they would be wrong and you would be right.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say, or like, I don't know what I see on social media, that they say that Sweden has gotten out of control in recent years, and that might be like true compared to how it was before, but I think definitely it would be an exaggeration to say that it has like gotten out of control, because compared to other countries, we're still very safe, or like
completely. Hey, Felicia, do you have anything to add to that? By the way, what I was saying?
No, I don't think so.
Or like, I think Felicia can agree that, or like as you said before, Felicia, we are talking a lot about gang violence in Sweden. Like we have like an election in this autumn, and gang violence is basically half of what the politicians are talking about. So I don't think anyone in Sweden wants to not be aware of what's happening. So I think we're good at like self-criticizing ourselves.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I think that's such a really good example. Bro, I'm gonna just wait. Yeah. Well, I want to know. I want to go back to this. We only have a few minutes, but I want to go back to the question of censorship. Yeah. So like, how? All of you, like this talking about things on the world stage, like how often do you find yourself censoring yourself? Because I censor myself a lot.
You can go first.
Well, it depends on what I'm speaking on. I think we just saw, like, if I'm speaking on the United States, we're in a very powerful position in the United States, and like a lot of countries look up to us, and we run the global stage. So speaking out against it is easier, but Israel, like, I want to censor myself a little more because I don't want to give way for people to be anti-Semitic and like get the wrong impression about certain things.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Do you have that about Taiwan? Do you feel like, do you feel a need to like speak about Taiwan? And because you're Taiwanese, do you feel like, how much do you feel like you really need to talk about Taiwan in very positive ways?
Like, it's my own society, so I will protect when someone like say really negative things about it.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's also allowing others to have their like opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So except if it's really, really negative, I won't like really stand up to say like things about like to.
How about this? How about if the negative thing that someone says, how about if that person is Chinese or that person is American? Does it matter to you?
Not really.
It doesn't matter?
Like, depends on what topics they're talking about. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. It's interesting. See, what I'm hearing from you actually is that there's a lot of, it's very complicated and it's very nuanced is the word.
What is that?
Nuanced means that it's very gray, it's gray area. Yeah. Huh. Faraz?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, let me just say this, right? I think it's really interesting for you. You probably understand Sam pretty well.
In what sense?
What, in the sense of like how he thinks about the things he wants to say and the things he doesn't want to say.
Definitely 100%, yeah.
The impression that he leaves and the impression that.
Yeah, I feel like, especially coming from Saudi Arabia, I represent my country. So whatever I say, people take. It's like the example of the gang violence of like, whatever I say will like leave an impression of what my country is. So everything I have to say, like I have to like I have to think about, okay, should I say this? Should I not say this? Is this good? Is it not good? So I feel like I'm very like careful with my words.
Yeah. Do you relate to that?
Yeah, I totally agree to him because like if I say something right here, I'm representing Korea, right? So if I say something wrong, like some people like might not agree to me, and like they would think that I'm like what's the word? Like giving like bad impression about Korea, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that sounds like a universal thing. Hey, listen. Thanks you all. Hey, on the Sweden and India, thanks for joining the class. It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, and Gauri, thank you for asking the question. It's really a cool question. I hope you got an answer to it.
Yeah.
You can, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.